welcome. Quote Me on That podcast is an initiative of Quote This Woman Plus. Quote This Woman Plus, also referred to as QW Plus, is a gender justice organization that links women plus experts to the media. Quote Me on That introduces our Women Plus experts to the world.
Okay. Hi and welcome. Today we're joined with Sihle Gili, a dynamic education advocate, youth strategist, and the founder of Norina Enterprises, based in Coffee Bay, Eastern Cape, which is, she'll tell you how beautiful that space is. So thank you so much for joining us, Sihle. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much, Renee. I'm really, really honored to be part of this platform and to speak life and voice into youth and education, my passion interest.
Beautiful, beautiful. So with over 7 years of experience in education access, youth development, and social innovation, Sihle brings a rare blend of grassroots wisdom and strategic leadership. This is a powerhouse. So, you are actually so privileged to be meeting her today. Her work spans rural classrooms, youth entrepreneurship hubs, and national education campaigns, all grounded in a belief that young people, especially in rural communities, deserve the tools and platforms to thrive. And we'll hear all about that. So in the episode, in this discussion at least, we'll unpack the inclusive inclusive education looks like, why rural youth deserve center stage, and I'm sure Sihle is going to totally speak truth to power on this one. So let's just jump into it. All right, so Sihle, please take us back. What sparked your passion for education and youth empowerment?
Okay, to begin with, Renee, initially, there's lots of different in my story and my history, and there's lots of little pivotal moments that shaped it. One being I was born in the Eastern Cape, and then my parents moved me to Mozambique. So there I was able to meet different cultures, and I've seen how geography and circumstances can also shape access to opportunity. So that was my experience in growing in completely different culture. And I think my passion began also on why should myself actually asking myself, why should where you born determine the quality of the education or your future? And then fast forward a few years later, I find myself as an SRC representative at WITS. And during the peak of Fees Must Fall, and I then started understanding how class, race, and also your gender shapes the outcomes in which you have in life, and as also being a result of how education has shaped my family and also my own life outcomes, I started investigating how I can actually become an activist in that space and not only look at education in the center areas, in metropolitans, but in the rural areas where often not necessarily that I want to create a bridge in the rural area communities, but rather provide a voice for areas that already are dynamic, that already are resilient. They just don't have opportunities that better help them to be resilient or sustainable in their own way. So that's how my story really began and how I found myself as an advocate for education and youth development in different communities.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So I want to stay with that. So you speak about growing up in different areas, but also working within rural areas. You live in Coffee Bay at the moment. What challenges and possibilities do you see in the education system?
Okay, so speaking to this area predominantly, it's challenges of long distances to schools, under-resourced classrooms, undervalued teachers, and a cycle of generational poverty. So one example I'd make is that we have a program in one of the NGOs I work with. We have a program where we empower parents to not only introduce education to children in their when they go to school, but to actually create the home as the first education, as the first introduction. So often with the ripple effects and tragedies of apartheid, most of these parents were not able to have access to education. So they first, even their idea is that, no, the teacher is the educator. So one of my very passionate programs would be getting parents involved in their children's education. So we have a program called Education in the Home, with home facilitators that go and help parents get involved in their child's education, be it in ECDs. How it usually starts is that they will have one-on-one sessions with the facilitator, and the facilitator will empower them on like how they can, simple things, Renee, like for example, how many cows are outside, instead of just saying go pick up that go pick up the ball, you say go pick up that ball that's white, and you add detail and you create details within the home space. So it's a lovely space where you can parents, especially when you can see the impact that you're having, where parents that were first very like resistant to becoming key stakeholders in their children's education, and then you start to see that shift in mindset where they're now wanting to know, okay, it's exciting to be part of the facilitation. You even see the attendance register peaking from, you know, what initially started as 43%, and now it's like an 87. And the way the attendance was so poor, I just needed a few key parents that were empowered and actually believed in the program, and they now got the other parents to buy in. And just statistically too, in rural communities, parents that are more involved in their child's educational journey, that child is more likely to finish their education, more likely to go further and go to university, more likely to either become a business owner, entrepreneur, and further come back to the same communities and create development. So that's one of my projects that I'm really, really passionate about. And I think it's not a huge program, but it actually does a huge difference to a few individual children in our schools and programs, so that we're able to deepen community care, intergenerational wisdom, and young people ideas are then later shaped as well as the community as a whole.
That's fantastic. So Sihle, even though you're saying it's like a small drop in the ocean, it's amazing, right? Because that child will go to the WITS and will go to UCT and whatever else, and be telling and living that and breathing that story. So it's very powerful, actually. I'm listening to you and really powerful.
Sorry to interrupt, Renee. Also, when we speak on that, my goal is also to get the child to go to the UCT, go to your WITS, but come back to their community and further develop their community. So that full circle is what we initially trying to strategically create within our rural communities.
That is amazing, because very often once you've gone to university in a metro, you have opportunity, and obviously salaries, a lot of lifestyle, everything is a bit more appealing, I suppose. It's different from what you have in a village, but yet there's this unbelievable, I can't even describe it, from just engaging with people coming from village spaces. There is this magic that when you return and you actually plow it back in, is really something incredible. So I mean, I see it with you. You speak about sustainability. You've done quite a lot of work in terms of that, and I suppose this is where all of these little pieces fit in. But could you tell me what, in your mind, a youth voice means, and how you'd make sure that it's not just a youth voice for the sake of a youth voice? Because you speak about, you know, kind of the continuum, working with ECDs and with youth. So how do you make sure that those voices, as you take them on a journey, are not just there as part of a display, but actually mean something?
So a lot of my work in answering that question, I often find that as advocates and as community bearers and leaders, so long as we know we don't serve our communities and create platforms for voices of our community, we are doing a disservice to our community. So to me, youth voices is often creating spaces for youth voices. It often means real power and space to shape, question, and lead their own discussions. Avoiding tokenism also means not decorative like ideas of like, yeah, youth empowerment. Ironically, we're in the month of youth, but letting them know that, for example, yes, the youth of 1976 is not the same as our youth, and that our challenges are different, but we're inspired. We borrow from the ways in which they fought, they struggle, but then understanding that our struggle is different and them creating their own ideas and own voices, as well as decision-making power, because often the time is that we want to give them tokenism, as in like the youth is here, but then we don't actually create real spaces and real power decision-making spaces for them. So I'd like to create, I often want to create, as I consider myself a youth social facilitator, and that means co-creating, decision-making, and storytelling their stories. It's also in line with budget, planning, creating room, and outcomes. So how do you as the youth want to see your next generation, rather than saying, this is what I have outcomed and lined out and this is how we're going to achieve it, but rather discussion and giving them real power rather than tokenism.
Yeah. Fantastic. You've actually even answered my next question, which was about how do you actually create a program of inclusivity and making sure that they are empowered. So what you're saying is nothing about us without us, and that truly they're part of the entire cycle of the planning and the implementation and the monitoring and evaluation, whatever that means, yeah, for the program that's been created. Yeah.
Yeah, because it often is difficult when we create programs and they don't have a buy-in. You find yourself on the outskirts and dragging people along to a program that they never initially were part of.
Oh, Mawa, that is very true. So you've worked across multiple platforms. How do you see education evolving outside of the classroom? If we think about film and community theater and those types of engagements.
There's a few ways in which I'd say, like, education is, for example, even through WhatsApp, with a program that I've been involved with, which is the Code This Woman program. I saw how the digital space is creating spaces of education, sharing information, and another, for example, when I think about creating education going outside the classroom, I led a youth theater program called Trailer Trash Gang. So there was basically a theater production which went outside the classroom, but then also using theater and film to educate people on recycling and also preserving our earth and climate change matters. So technology, I think, has helped us a lot to change and move outside your traditional spheres of education.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And then can you share an initiative? I mean, you've shared a few things now, but where you witnessed youth-led change in action?
Where I've witnessed this personally, I would say, there's a few.
I'm sure.
There's a few. So, one would be the Sunshine Cinema program, which I've also been able to be part of, where they identify key community facilitators in the leaders in the communities, and then it's strictly youth-led, but it also creates a space that empowers youth, and not just in an idea of tokenism as we were talking about earlier, but looking for youth in the different communities, be it rural, already doing great work, and just further amplifying them through using film, actually. So they now use the sandbox, and then they go around the communities and film specific films along the line of education to vote, the right to vote, apartheid, colonialism, and sparking conversations among community and different age groups within their communities, but mostly importantly, creating awareness and education. So I think that's a really cool way, because it utilizes film, which often breaks the ice, because there are all these difficult conversations within those films that have not yet, like you as the facilitator have to create an atmosphere in which people are comfortable and feel safe to give their opinions and change their concepts, because sometimes people they've been miseducated, and the community has to just have an open conversation on educating one another.
That's amazing. I've heard of Sunshine Cinema, so thank you for bringing that up. It is definitely an initiative that is amazing and out of the box. So you've worked with many stakeholders. How do you find balance and remain rooted in your community work that you do, and just connected to the community?
For me, I think, as I was saying earlier, that once I'm no longer, once I'm leading my own programs, instead of the community telling me or guiding me, I'd find it useful. Useless. So I often touch base with traditional leaders. I have a traditional leader, for example, in a little village called Kogi, where we're building a school together. And even when we're doing the school building, I had a problem that I needed to solve, which was find land. And I was like, I have no idea, where do they need schools? And then I just created a touch base, and I said, hey, everyone that is from different villages, take me to your community leader or your chief. And then just in that connection and constantly touching base, like, what problems do you have that I can solve? What problems, what issues do you have that I can solve? So always being grounded in the community and integrity, even in your leadership skills. So sometimes I found myself going to community meetings, Renee, where I'd be coming from work, or I'm in my jeans and pants, and they're like, you can't come here with your jeans. It is like, and I had to humble myself. And also, I mean, it's easy for me in that space to be like, oh, that's so outdated, that's so patriarchal, sexist. But I was like, I'm here to serve. So if it would make the community look at me as a better leader and a better representative of their needs and goals, I will wear a duk and I will wear a skirt to also honor their tradition, because it's harder to have progress or community development when you're coming from an outsider looking in, rather from a grassroots upwards rather than down up. So that's how I've always found it easier to choose the path of least resistance. And sometimes it takes longer. I do understand, because you also have to have these meetings, or sometimes be dismissed certain spaces because you haven't put a duk on. But once you've actually broken that disconnection and broken the ice, you actually find out that these are awesome human beings, and we're all in the same, we're trying to all achieve the same goal.
Okay, that's amazing. So it's meeting people where they are. So even if you are coming into a space that's not your everyday space, but knowing what is appropriate, and really also being humble, I guess, to be taking on the lead from a community, because very often people with education, people with certain statures will come in and feel like, but I've got the knowledge, or I've got the expertise. And what you're describing now is, well, actually, you're going to have to look at your surroundings and what it is that you can remove as a barrier to to move closer. So it makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that. So, I mean, in your introduction, I spoke about your organization or your company that you've started, Norina Enterprise. Could you tell us a little bit about this? Where did this come from, and what is the aim of the organization?
So, Norina Enterprises is my baby. She's now 5 years old. What began is Norina Enterprises was established in 2020 when COVID started. I was retrenched, and I had to now be challenged to actually start my own company and look at how would I now create. I think for COVID, for me, it was a great opportunity where I was like, okay, now you're retrenched, perhaps like you have time to look at your own goals and dreams. And what I envision the organization to represent is as a communication strategy company, social impact storyteller, and business consultancy. So yes, it's a private company, but at the same time with social responsibility interests. So I always found myself as, I'd say it's a social entrepreneurship company, and always looking for either our core focus is in the educational space, land development, and ancestry history, and telling stories within the communities that it's represented or finds itself located.
That is amazing. I love the fact that you have not just gone to one little thing, but you've actually latched onto all the intersectionalities here. Every little thing that could possibly cross-pollinate. So amazing. I love the fact that you're telling a story of, here's COVID, everyone's going, oh my word, you've just, been retrenched. But out of the embers comes this amazing product, and I'm so happy that I could have you share that with us here. So thank you for that. So my next question is around the QW Plus Voices Fellowship. I mean, earlier you spoke about being part of it. So what has the fellowship meant for you, and how has it kind of helped you shape your voice as a leader?
Wow. When I started the program, I started as I'd say I was just using my voice just to check a box, but the program actually really helped me question, how do I see my voice and how do I want my voice represented? And it also made me realize how my voice speaks for others. So the confidence that it's developed for me in terms of brand positioning myself, brand positioning my company. I would really suggest this program to any woman in the space, especially in the advocacy space. It's very often that I think not necessarily that women don't have voices, they just haven't found the way to articulate themselves accurately in the time and space that they want, in the rooms that they need to represent themselves. So this program for me helped me understand what my voice sounds like, what it's going to represent, who it's going to represent, and out of it all, confidence. Like I can't shut up. I can't shut up. Sorry, excuse me, I have something to say.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
So I would advise it to any, honestly, coming out of this, I can even see how I found myself interconnected with like reestablishing my company that was dormant, getting in touch with sunshine. It just really opened, like it really helped me to move out of my little bubble corner and feel shy, but accurately narrate my story.
That is fantastic, Sihle. Absolutely amazing. So we've come to the end. I don't know if there's maybe like one tip or one thing you want to leave listeners with. Just some form of motivation or tip that you'd like to share. What would it be?
Yes, I do. I've got 2 quotes I'd like to leave you with.
Lovely.
And one, storytelling is not soft power. It is system shifting power. And another thing I'd like to say to the listeners is that when we tell our own stories, we don't just reclaim the narrative, but we reshape the system as a whole.
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much. That was Sihle Gili, reminding us that access to education is not a policy issue, it's a human right, and that rural youth are not waiting to be saved, they're ready to lead. And I mean, you've spoken about that. So if you've really been inspired by this discussion and by Sihle's vision, follow her work at Norina Enterprises and her own personal social media. And like this episode, share this episode, subscribe to our channel, make sure that these women's voices are heard. And until next time, stay learning, stay bold, and always continue to put women plus. Thank you
So much, Renee.